From the creators of Relevant Magazine, this is the Relevant Podcast.
It's a cruel world before the eyes of these passionate sins. I would use not to stay alive if the ground were to bend. And maybe because I you fall back on the bed. But it's something about the end will cover in the rags of number. I'm tired of you now. I feel far from the weather. I hope to run again to figure out a way to.
It is Tuesday, November 11th, 2019. You're listening to the Relevant Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Huckabee, over here in Nashville, Tennessee. And back there in our studios in Orlando, Florida, we have our illustrious producer, Chandler Strang.
Hello.
And out there in Loveland, Virginia, it's always good to be able to talk to our friend Jesse Carey.
Hello.
And joining us today on the Relevant Podcast, we've been looking forward to this one, been trying to make it happen for a while. I'm glad it finally worked out. She's the author of the best-selling book, Own Your Everyday, host of the podcast. She, from Indianapolis, Jordan Lee Dooley, joins us. Hi, Jordan.
Hey, friends. How you doing?
Good.
Jordan,
Thanks for,
this has been,
yeah.
it's always nice when we have when this is kind of an excuse for us to just hang out with people we want to hang out with anyway, under the guise of it being a professional piece of content. So we're just fans that we're able to con you into doing this.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us today, Jordan.
Hey, you know what? I love when you can blend work and fun and call it work, and it's not really even feeling like work.
It's like the 4-hour work week or whatever. Like the secret to that book wasn't, like I picked up that book one time and was like, all right, this is sweet. This guy's hacked it and you only got to work 4 hours. But this real secret is just, if you love what you do, you're never working. So it's only like 4 hours of real work and you get to do fun stuff like this all the time.
Yep.
Jordan, I know you're a big, college football fan. That's correct, right?
Well, I would say yes. We are quite the big football family, given my husband's background and our dating background.
Yeah.
He played college football, so we've got a soft place in our heart toward toward the football culture.
Any opportunity I can talk sports on the Relevant Podcast, I do, because a lot of people who come on have no desire to talk about it. But how do you feel so far about the college football season? And if you had to name, not to put you on the spot, but the top 4 going into like a playoff situation, who do you like right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, here's the thing. My husband's much more versed at the rankings and predictions. But what I can say is that I am very proud of my Hoosiers, because this is the first year in a very long time that they are officially ranked. We just are currently, as of today, ranked at 24, and they're bowl eligible. So it is a really exciting thing for us to see the Hoosiers doing well. I mean, they've never been a big football school. That's definitely a big basketball school. So to see the football team rallying like they are, honestly, is all I care about. I'm like, all the other schools can do whatever they want. I'll be here watching them beat Nebraska and beat everybody else. So it's been fun. We were working out about 2.5 weeks ago was the Nebraska game. IU played Nebraska. We went to Indiana University. That's where I met my husband. And we're at the gym and we're working out. And I look over and my husband's not working out. He's just yelling at the TV in the gym. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, we're about to beat Nebraska, and I'm like, what? So that's really what my energy has been focused on. I wish I had a little bit more to say about everybody else, but I have been hyper focused on my alma mater.
No, that's the spirit of a true fan, is because you really only care about your team. And I don't know if you know this, but Tyler over here is from Nebraska. So it's true. Already, the tension is already ratcheting up here.
Sorry about that.
I wasn't aware of this. I thought maybe out of solidarity, you'd pretend to at least kind of be happy whoever won that game. But no, that's okay. That's okay. I can bounce back from this one. That's all right. It's early.
Jordan, I have a question for you. Growing up, or even since you've been in college, how frequently do you watch the film Hoosiers? Because my high school basketball coach was from Indiana, and he would literally watch it like 3 times a year. It was a very big deal. Do you watch Hoosiers at least once a year?
I feel like I'm being a bad Hoosier by saying I don't, but I think at watching movies, it's so bad. I watched it growing up, and then I don't know if it was just because I got to experience the culture firsthand. That just, I don't know. I just know we don't watch it all the time, but it's I would say it's pretty accurate in many ways. Obviously, different time, but yeah.
How many Bobby Knight red sweaters do you and your husband own collectively?
Oh my gosh. Well, here's this funny thing. We've been trying to simplify our lives, and I keep finding like everywhere from the red sweater to all of the gear, all of the football gear. I mean, and the football players would get multiple pieces of apparel every year. So I'm like, how do we have 17 red zip ups and 4 pairs of the same red sweatpants and 800 red socks? But it's like, you want to get rid of them to simplify your life, but then it's like that, those things that have so much meaning that it's hard to actually part with. So we just have this giant chest in our house of clothes that doesn't really get worn, but it's there in case we need to prove we have it.
So you've decided to keep them for sentimental value instead of just getting rid of them.
Yes. And we've also gifted some to family members. My brother's, my husband was like, I'm going to give some to my brother-in-law. He's a Hoosier as well. He's a Hoosier grad or IU grad. So it's worked out. We've been able to kind of disperse them a little bit, to distribute them is the word I'm looking for, distribute them a little bit, but we still have quite the collection, and it's unfortunately most of it is his, so it's too big for me.
Was this inspired by a Marie Kondo situation? Did you see some of that and were like, okay, it's time we got to cut down on the red sweater collection?
And it was tough because it's like, man, these red sweaters spark joy, and I don't know how to part with them. The amount of them don't spark joy, but each one sparks joy, and so what do you do?
Yeah, that's my problem with simplifying is I have way too much that almost all my material possessions spark joy for me. So I'm going to end up like a storage unit person. I think I like your idea of starting with like a chest in your house and having things in there. But I can already tell for me that I'm going to outgrow that soon. I'm going to need like a storage unit where I just hold all the old baseball cards and like Fun Run t-shirts from over the years. Cause I don't know when I'll be in a sentimental mood and want to rifle through them again,
Okay. So I have a really weird relationship with storage units. If we can just talk about this for a second. Okay. 2 things. Right. First thing is when my husband and I first got married, he had just been released from the Steelers. He played professionally for a little while. And so we were like, okay, shoot, neither of us have jobs all of a sudden. What are we doing with our lives? I had a part-time blog and part-time photography business, but we didn't have neither of us had a stable job, if you will. And so he said, well, let's move. We were in Indianapolis at that point, and he said, let's move back to my hometown, which was Phoenix, Arizona, because that's where his training was, and he had coaching, and he had all the resources there that he would need to try to train and get back in the NFL. And so we didn't even get to unpack our wedding gifts. I mean, we had 3 of the same blender that we just had to shove into a storage closet, and we drove across the country, and we lived there with his grandparents for a brief stint. And then we got an apartment, lived out there for about a year. So I didn't even get to break into my wedding gifts that I was so excited to use until about a year after we got married. And then that's like a personal story with a storage locker. But then literally last night, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of that Amazon series, Sneaky Pete. Have you heard of that? Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
I have not watched it, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so we're like probably far too far into this show, to be honest. But we aren't big. We haven't watched a whole lot of movies recently, but we've been into these crime shows. And we started watching Sneaky Pete. And literally yesterday's episode was this, basically the family owns this bail bond business, short story. And one of the prisoners that they were trying to take back to jail, for some reason, they had to store in a storage or a storage locker, a storage unit, just like we were talking about, so that this bad guy who was trying to kill her couldn't get to her. And it was just like the scariest thing, because then they found her in the storage locker, and I'm like, hiding under my blanket, like peeking out, like, is he going to get her in this? And she's like trapped, and she's this pregnant woman who was supposed to be in jail, but she's in a storage locker. I don't want to ruin it. But anyways, it like made me feel for her. And so I'm like, man, I just don't love this storage locker situation.
It's the whole storage locker culture. Like, I love storage wars, where they bid on delinquent storage units, but it takes a certain kind of like outlaw to even want to participate in something like that. Right. Like when I went to like a Christian college, and they had restrictions on like co-ed spaces, like basically like girls and guys weren't allowed to be in each other's dorm rooms. And so there wasn't like a lot. I mean, you go to like coffee shops and stuff, but I literally had friends who would rent storage units and go to thrift stores and outfit them with furniture.
No way.
Just so like we could have like a co-ed like space where people can hang out. He ended up just moving into the storage unit. It seemed very uncomfortable and very, very cold. But I'll say this, it's very cheap
How
rent.
does he, like, what about making food and bathroom and like other, like, what is that? How does that work?
I think he was using like a local gym's bathroom or something like
Wow, that is creative.
But this wasn't the type of person that was overly concerned with hygiene, believe it or not.
I would imagine.
He was Survivor, It's like the storage unit's the only solution if you're a college student and need $30 a month for rent. There you go. I mean, you won't have, I think he was running like an extension cord from like a plug he found outside. He had a whole setup in there. So
wow,
that's great.
Yeah. It's very impressive what you can do with a storage unit. Yeah.
Well, we have a really good show kind of today. We've also got, in addition to Jordan, Gallant is going to be joining us to talk about his brand new album, Sweet Insomnia. Looking forward to that conversation. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to do Slices.
'Cause now I'm in it, but I've been trying to find my way back for a minute. Damn, I'm in it, and I've been trying to find my way back for a minute.
You're listening to Now I'm In It by Haim. At the beginning of the podcast, you heard Guts by Augustine. And now it's time. We're going to go into Slices. This is where we each bring an interesting piece of news that we found for the week to discuss amongst ourselves. Jordan, I'm aware that you didn't bring anything, so you're just going to have to react in real time to the stories that Jesse and I are bringing to the podcast here. So it's time for Slices. Jesse, what do you got?
Okay. Well, Jordan, I'm excited to hear your perspective on this. This is a story that we covered a few months ago when it was first kind of teased, but now it's this new feature on Instagram is formally rolling out because, Jordan, you have a very impressive, you have like over 300,000 Instagram followers. That's a pretty impressive following.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear what you think of this news because I can kind of see this one both ways. So Instagram is going to start this week rolling out a new feature where it'll be hiding likes on posts. And so basically, like when when you're scrolling Instagram, you won't be able to see how many people liked a certain piece of content. Now, their explanation for this is what the head of Instagram told Bloomberg. They said, what we're hoping to do is depressure Instagram a little bit and make it a little bit less of a competition. The idea is to try and reduce anxiety and social comparison, specifically with an eye toward young people. This is like a pretty big move for Instagram. Tyler and Jordan, what do you guys both think of them removing likes from individual posts?
Well, I feel like kind of what you said, there's probably pros and cons to it. I think with any change in anything, there's pros and cons. When I first heard that several months ago, kind of my initial reaction was, I would say not surprised, but curious. And the more that it's been explained, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. One thing that I find interesting, and now this could just be hearsay, and feel free to pitch in on or your opinion and or what you have heard. But from my understanding, the founders of these social media companies do not allow their own children to actually use the platforms. I think given the, the algorithm tends to, from what I understand, favor they want to keep people on their platform longer. So the entire platform is built to ultimately figure out ways to keep you staring at your screen longer, right? And that increases their ad dollars and purchasing power and all these other things. And so from my understanding as to how the app works, I think it's a healthy move in many ways. I don't necessarily know if that actually resolves the problems because I think the reality, and from what I understand, as a viewer and as a user, you still see how your posts are performing, right? We have to be able to do that, especially as creators, anybody who, uses it for something more than just for fun. And so they are from what I understand, leaving that feature. Do you know specifically if that's true? Because from what I understand as a creator or as someone who posts something, I can still see how many likes it gets. So while I definitely think it could cut down on the comparison factor, I think comparison also is so much bigger than just how many likes. I also think it's what someone's showing and what they're up to in their life and what's in the photo content or the video content or, the big milestone they're sharing. I think comparison is so much bigger than just, oh, she got 10 more likes than I did, So I just kind of wonder how effective it will really be. I think it's a great effort and I think it's worth trying. But I just feel like there's so much more to the picture than just the likes component. Would you agree or would you disagree?
Yeah, I definitely think it's like a symptom of a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, like part of like even the whole construct of a lot of social media, going back to like Facebook, and then you see it on Twitter and Instagram and basically all of them now is like we like express our approval with little icons that are like hearts or like, or like a thumbs up. It's like literally this kind of one click approval of other people's kind of ideas and actions, which I definitely think isn't inherently unhealthy, but it does seem like that whole construct of like, ultimately, like we're out there looking for other people's approval through this kind of symbolic action that they do, by liking content. I could see how that gets unhealthy, but I think you're right. I don't know if it like cuts to the core of the problem or if it just, alleviates one of the symptoms of it. Tyler, what do you think about removing likes?
Yeah, I think you both are really on the right track. I agree with this. I think that Instagram, which is obviously owned by Facebook, they're not going to be doing anything that's going to be hurting their bottom dollar. And this feels like kind of one of those ways sometimes that big companies like this will offload the obvious issues with their platform onto the users. They can make it seem like they're doing something that's sort of socially responsible by saying, well, this way we'll hide the likes so that, you all won't feel quite as tempted as you were before to be comparing each other, when the issue is so much bigger and more systemic and it would involve them doing things that would actually hurt the way they do business and the type of ads that they run and the donors that they talk to. So I think that real change, like real important change, which I do hope comes to these major companies, I think it would look like something very different, probably not something they particularly want to do. So the fact that they're doing this makes me think that it's a Band-Aid on a problem that is a lot deeper and more systemic, and it's not really the consumer's fault. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems like the original intention of some of these platforms has evolved in a way that I think it's positive that they're making some changes to them. So, well, I want to bring one more news story about a product. Christmas is coming up. And I know we're all looking for those perfect gifts for people. And there is a gentleman named Joseph Lerner who unveiled his new product. It's called the pedestrian horn. And so, Chandler, in a second, I'm going to get you to cue up the video because he really pitches it pretty well. But while this short video is playing, picture a guy walking through the crowded streets of New York City wearing a steering wheel around his neck and just blasting the horn as he sees people out on the street. Chandler, here, play a little clip of this video.
These are cars. These are people. What if people were cars? Would you do this?
And the remainder of the video is just him walking around beeping his little horn at people. So I think this guy is the genius of our time because there's no more conflicted relationship that I feel like human beings have with any invented device as like a car horn. Like you're either a car horn person or you're not. Like, I feel like you're either the type of person, if you use a car horn, I feel like you use it regularly or you've only used it like twice in your life. Jordan, how often do you use your car horn?
I think I'm one of those that has probably used it twice, maybe 3 times in my life. This is the like house divided situation we always have because my husband lives for the horn, and I'm always like, no, that's so rude. Don't honk at them.
Tyler, I know you well enough, Tyler, that I feel, and Chandler too. I think I can go on a limb that you guys are never horn people.
That's accurate.
It's really rare.
Yep.
Now,
okay.
but I have a co-pilot. If my wife is in me, then it is not infrequent that she'll reach. She has reached over many times to like, I'll be in charge. I'll be handling like the brakes and the wheel and things like that, and she'll navigate the horn situation.
So, as talking to 3 never horn people, I'm a big fan of the horn.
Yeah, I feel like you probably like the horn quite a bit.
Now, I do, and I like it because I've mastered the like, it's okay, I'm not mad to like horn toot. That's the key, guys, is like, because like, let's say you're at a stoplight, right? And it turns green and the person in front of you can see they're texting or they're liking something on Instagram. If it's like a blowing the horn of about a second and a half, that's you could start a fight in the intersection. But if you really careful, just doot doot boop boop.
Yeah.
It sends the message. I'm here. I'm friendly. I'm a friend back here. So I think you guys just need a little technique, but I love this guy's invention because the one thing about honking the horn that makes it uncomfortable is when someone looks through the window and they can see you doing it. Is the reason that you guys don't like tooting the horn because you don't want that awkward eye contact of like someone looking back like, come on, someone's honking at me.
What do you think, Jordan?
I think I forget that it's there. I think that's part of it, and then it's just so loud that I like the input on the technique. I've never really thought about car horn technique before, but why not? I think that's genius because usually it's that loud, like it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. It's just unpleasant. So that's why I'm actually not a fan of this Christmas gift idea because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's only going to make the problem worse. But I find that very interesting that there are apparently now I'm learning from what you just shared different ways in which to communicate what you're saying. So I don't know. Normally I think I just forget that it's there. And then after I've had one situation, which I think has made me a little bit more hesitant to use the horn where it might have happened once or twice now, where like I forget that the horn's there and then something happens, somebody cuts me off or something, and like, those awkward like 4 seconds pass and then I remember the horn's there and then I hit it and I'm like, well, now it's completely pointless and I just look ridiculous. So I think I'm just not good with my timing, to be honest. I forget it's there and then by the time I remember, it's too late.
Oh, I'm using the horn instantly. If I think someone's about to cut me off, a prolonged blast of the horn along with a death stare does a lot of good. It says, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. I saw what you're trying there. I'm for the safety of everyone. But the pedestrian horn, which he's only making a handful of, and he's charging like $700 for. The great thing about it is like, it was only going to appeal to a certain type of person, like the worst type of confrontational person out there. Like someone who is just like looking, it's the person, and Jordan, you're a football fan. If you were to go, like, let's say Indiana was going to Nebraska to play in Nebraska. Let me ask you this.
Don't do
this. Do you wear Indiana gear into the other stadium, or are you just like, I don't want conflict today. I'll cheer for my team, but I want to put up with the awkwardness. Are you wearing the gear to another team stadium?
Oh, yeah. I think that's so I'm like a walking contradiction is basically what we're talking now, because I'm like not wanting confrontation with a horn, but I will gladly wear my Hoosier sweatshirt into any stadium.
See, I can't do it. I don't even like wearing if I'm not like locally cheering for a team. If I'm like I watched football at this pizza place has like a big sports party. I didn't even want to wear team gear there because I'm like, I don't know who's there. I don't know who's going to try to mix it up with me, but I am the type that would probably use the pedestrian horn to blast strangers just randomly.
Well, we know a lot about you now.
I was just a couple weeks ago. I got back from Paris and was over there. I noticed a stereotype about the French people being very rude. Not my experience. Everybody over there that I talked to was, for the most part, extremely pleasant and nice to be around. But there was one time when I was on a train and a man heard me talking, heard me speaking English, my American accent, and just launched right in to this lengthy and very in-depth diatribe about politics and the situation in the Middle East and the U.S. involvement over there, like just without giving me a chance to what side I was coming from. What are you thinking about? Are you from America? There was none of that. It was just like, bam. I feel like that's what the horn, that guy needed a horn to like announce his, because all he could do was shout.
Yeah. Yeah. He could have introed with the beep, beep. I have a pleasant conversation coming with someone who appears to be a different customer, but from a different country. What he did, he just came blasting through the intersection, horn blasting, like he's got some kind of emergency. That's just the wrong technique. That's all. He could have averted that very easily. So,
yeah. Well, now we know. All right. So my slice is kind of the same. We're all kind of on a similar energy today, I think. So this was an interesting study that came out. Some data analysis came out from BuzzFeed News today, and I think we're all familiar about the stereotype of the entitled millennial, right? And the millennials are moochers. They're just waiting for the government handout. They just want to get their YouTube channel going or to get Instagram famous enough that they don't have to work anymore. And until then, they're just going to sit around and wait for the trust fund to come in, right? We've all heard the stereotype and are probably already a little skeptical of it.
Yeah, I tend to be a millennial apologist. I feel like our generation gets a pretty undeserved rap.
Some unfair hate on that. I was nevertheless still surprised by some of the things that this study found. So BuzzFeed looked at the survey of income and program participation. It's carried out by the U.S. Census Bureau. Just finds out the way that different people in America are spending their money. And they found about 1.4 million American millennials are financially supporting their parents right now. That is almost equal. It's statistically indistinguishable from the number of boomers who are financially supporting their adult children right now. So there are as many millennials who are helping float their parents financially as there are parents who are helping float their children financially. And what they found a lot of times is that the stereotype of the millennial who moves back in with their parents, like sleeping on their couch or in the basement or whatever, a lot of times that's a mutually advantageous situation. Yeah. They're chiming in together for rent, for the mortgage, or they ask their kids to move back in as they're getting older and they have more health difficulties or they need help. The kid can pay a little bit of rent basically as a landlord, and that will help them make ends meet. So it's never, even when it is a kid who is living with their parents, it's not always as straightforward as the kid just couldn't make it on their own. So this should, but probably won't put that stereotype to rest. But I was really surprised. Does that line up with your anecdotal understanding of the way a lot of our millennial peers live?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is that like the failure to launch stereotype, like, there's millennials in their early 30s, living in the basement or whatever, where I haven't really observed that. But I think, too, there's really no shame either way. Like if you're an adult and you're making the decision to, live with family, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if you're someone who is in the boomer generation and decide, hey, it makes more sense on a lot of avenues to move back in with my adult children, I don't think there's any shame there either. I think it's the kind of weird thing is I feel like especially in our modern culture, both of those to some degree, it's not I don't know if shame's the right word, but but neither of those are necessarily looked at as positives when you look at a lot of other cultures where it's not uncommon to have multiple generations under one roof. I think it's a positive thing for the millennial generation that it's working both ways. But I think kind of the insinuation in general that it's a negative, I kind of question that to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
I feel like there's kind of a couple different thoughts on it, like a two-prong approach almost, because I think there's a part, first thing, kind of like you mentioned about other cultures, what I find interesting is I think in our culture that's so individualistic. I think that, like you mentioned, the approach across the board, it's wrong, it's bad, it's not good or it's shameful. I think it can be unhealthy and damaging in some ways. And I think it's also a reminder of the important, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Jeff Befke, he's a good friend of ours, and he does this whole thing called family teams. And it's kind of pushing a little bit against this notion of, we're all individuals, meaning, okay, you go do your thing, I go do my thing, and we all come back and see each other on holidays. I think there's this lost art in the American culture of the family team, and how, you look back hundreds of years, it was the family business, the family farm. When my husband and I decided to work together, I felt like a lot of people even looked at us like, are you sure that's going to ruin your marriage? And I kind of was challenged by that, I think, in a similar way of thinking, well, if we're family, right, and we're building a family together and building a life together, there's like this built-in team. I love the mentality that the family was like the first government, technically, that God set up, right? The first like institution or like unit, if you will. And so I think in some ways we've lost the ability to appreciate the team or the family as a team that can work together to move culture, to move, their own well-being, their own livelihood. So I think there's that perspective. But then I also think, kind of on the same note, it's very interesting, that statistic you brought up, because I'm also a huge, I would say in some ways, millennial advocate, in that I think millennials are actually very creative. And I think they, like you said, have gotten a bad rap in some ways. And I've actually found, most millennials I know are actually typically looking for strategic and creative and new ways to not only make a living, but to also make an impact. And that's been very interesting to me to observe. But, I think it's a careful balance, because I also don't want to come from the perspective of like, oh no, we should never say it's wrong or shameful, because I don't think it's healthy to give a green light to, make sure we're not, I guess the best way to say it is, we also want to make sure that we are being, I guess, proactive. I guess it's a situational thing, because like you shared, there's situations where it's like, this makes complete sense, or this is the best thing for this family. But another, I think, perspective, just to kind of play devil's advocate, is like, but let's not make that an excuse either for people not to grow up. And so it is a very, like, I think, challenging issue. And I don't think there is an across the board, like, perfect response, but I think it's something to be challenged by for sure.
I definitely think millennials are the most creative generation, because that guy who was my friend who lived in a storage unit and cooked grilled cheese sandwiches on a thrift store iron, guess what? He's a millennial and he's living his best life. He figured out a way to live in a storage unit. And so, but no, there was another study that kind of as related to this. Barna did a study. I think they did it with World Vision. And it looked at basically young adults, like kind of millennial aged Christians, and why they have like left the church, and what are their thoughts about how connected they are to their community. And one interesting and kind of like heartbreaking thing that was part of this study that kind of just indicated some of the values of the generation or some of the needs that were going unmet, was that only 1/3, so 33%, said they feel deeply cared for by those around them. And obviously, kind of the implication of this survey is like, well, maybe the church can do a better job of creating communities where people actually feel like the people around them care for. But I think also just having being more socially acceptable to spend a lot of time with your family and to live with your family as needed. That's got to be better than the alternative, which is isolation and disconnection,
Mm-hmm.
And it was something this study found that we've kind of hinted at, is that for a lot of the people moving in with their family or their family or vice versa, this was something that's very cultural for them. A lot of people, especially immigrant population, come from countries where this is an expected thing to do. So the sort of shame that's being heaped on this idea of it is a very, this is a very Western and a very American idea. And instead of saying what we could learn from that, and there, of course, it's true that you need to have a case by case basis mentality for all these things, because of course there are bad, lazy reasons to move in with your family. The person who's doing it like just to finish their screenplay, and 5 years later they still haven't quite gotten through Act 2 yet. And there's some questions there you got to ask about. But it sounds like, based on this study, that is not happening in any sort of appreciably greater levels than it has for past generations.
I'll say this for any parents out there looking to make sure that their adult children come to visit: take a page out of my parents' playbook. keep the fridge stocked with awesome food that your kids only ate as a child. Like, I didn't even know Toaster Strudels was still in business. Yet I go home, I go visit my parents, there's a whole freezer full. And I'm in there, microwaving them and doing the little frosting packets on top. That's the key. It's just keeping obscure snacks readily available. So it's like incentivizes a visit. No one's gonna complain when they got Dunkaroos in the pantry. Okay. Like it's a flashback to a more innocent time. So parents, if you want your millennial children to come home, just go on Amazon and buy some like Surge and some weird stuff that the health department has long discontinued, and stock that fridge and that pantry, because that'll get them back to the door.
Do y'all find when you go back, we're coming up on the holidays, we'll be traveling a little bit, probably a lot of us going to see our parents. I don't get a minor in Nebraska, so it's a little bit of a haul for me. Do you find that when you go back,
they're living and that whole state has been living in shame for a few weeks ago, right, Jordan?
I don't even know if they're going to allow me in. They might. Like, they're still trying to bounce back a little bit. Do you find that when you go back to your parents' house, you like regress immediately, like 20 years back to being 17 again? Like you just immediately turn into,
come on, Dad.
Exactly. Like you wake up in the morning, go to make breakfast, something I've been doing on my own for over half my life at this point. And I'm like, Mom, where's the peanut butter Captain Crunch?
I revert back to, I'm like the most, I hate when dishes are left out in my house. I hate when somebody forgets to put something in the sink. Like, it's just like my thing, I'm just like, please just put the dish away. And I go back to my parents' house and it's like, I revert to like, someone else is going to pick that up. Like, I just leave stuff. I'm like the biggest hypocrite.
And they're so happy that you're home, because the other thing is, too, parents, when you come visit, they just offer you random things like, oh, can I make you a snack? Would you like a cold drink? Yes. Just serve me, Mom.
See,
please.
This is the incentive to move out.
Life.
Here's the thing. I think if there's here's the two thoughts that I have. First thing is, I wanted to piggyback off of what y'all were saying briefly and say that I think a lot of students, or a lot of adults move back home temporarily. A lot of times when they're trying to start a business of their own or create something out of nothing, for sure, which I think is actually quite admirable and smart. But the second thing I wanted to say too is I think it's also an incentive a little bit to go out on your own at, when you're like, oh, okay, knowing I'm going to go home and I don't actually have to like do the chores and I'm treated like a guest and I'm cooked for and I have my peanut butter Captain Crunch. It's like, I think that also can serve as incentive to say, I'm going to go. And when I come back, it's going to be even better.
Peanut butter Captain Crunch. See, you're making me want to like go visit my parents this afternoon. Like, hey guys, let me know what obscure cereals you got, because I know you got a pantry full.
I think that'll wrap it up for
Slices.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Gallant's going to join us. You're listening to Darkest Hour by Low Roar. Well, Gallant is a singer and songwriter who has received critical acclaim for his unique brand of R&B. On his latest album, Sweet Insomnia, Gallant opens up about mental health, heartbreak, and the power of seeing both the good and the bad during life's hard moments. We recently spoke with Gallant about the album, vulnerability, and what it was like playing Christian college shows with Sufjan Stevens. Jesse, I think you handled this one, right?
Yeah, I was really excited to talk to Gallant. 2016's Ology was such a great breakout album.
That was where he really popped on my radar for the first time, and has been on it ever since. He's awesome.
Yeah, and so with his new album, which is called Sweet Insomnia, it's actually tonally, lyrically, pretty different, and musically, I feel like it's a big step forward. But I think what a lot of people will kind of notice right off the bat is kind of there's less ambiguity when it comes to the lyrical content, and he pretty much tackles the idea of mental health and real vulnerability and transparency head on. And I wanted to ask him about that and what it was like being so transparent with his music. And here's what he said.
I mean, I think luckily people are kind of cool with that, and people are talking about it openly. And then also, I'm in a place where, when I was in college, I dealt with a lot of like depression. And, I've gone to therapy for like, 7-8 years. So, I was just kind of used to being in this like cycle of constantly like, dealing with it or trying to get through it. And I feel like I was finally able to get to a place where, I'm a little bit post everything, even though obviously, or like erase it completely from your life. But I feel like, what I was saying with the whole bittersweet thing, like challenging everything, it's like, I have gotten to a point where I'm able to see the world as like, it's like you're looking at everybody and you see like an X-ray, like you see the good and the bad and the ugly, but the beautiful at the same time. So I think in this instance, I was able to just kind of use my relationship with depression and my struggles with mental health to just kind of open myself up to create something that's just based on my newfound point of view, instead of just kind of wallowing in it or, brooding.
It's interesting to see an artist like him really embrace that degree of vulnerability. And I think it says a lot, not just about him as an artist, but us culturally kind of being more comfortable kind of dealing with that.
Yeah. And I'm glad he's been able to find it sounds like the reception has been pretty positive, because I don't think that's a given for anybody to be opening up in really ambiguous ways about something that doesn't have a lot of concrete answers to it, obviously, or any concrete answers you try to give obviously sound pretty pat. It's cool that he has not faced a sort of that risk has paid off from it, sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. The other benefit of kind of being this vulnerable and kind of open, it's changed his relationship and the dynamics that he has with his fans. It's actually, how he approaches his live show, how he interacts with people. And here's how Gallant explained it to me.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was doing my first tour in like 2016 and even like support tours, like in 2017, I didn't talk to anybody on stage. Like I never really addressed the audience. It was like my moment for me to just kind of do whatever in that space. And it was like very self-indulgent, not always in a bad way, like just very therapeutic, So I feel like as times has kind of increased and I've been able to meet more people who connected with my point of view and just the way that my worldview has kind of shifted, which everyone goes through. It's just like growing up, I feel like I found more, like I have more fun, now, like interacting with my audience at every show. Like I have more fun, like smiling at photos and meeting fans and talking to them and, deeply and finding out about their life and how my music played a role in it, if it did, or how somebody else's music played a role in their life, if that did. It just feels like naturally I feel more connected to my like audience, so I think, it might have been like 50-50 kind of conscious trying to challenge myself to have that kind of relationship. But then the other 50 is just naturally I've somehow fallen into that kind of back and forth. And I'm excited to tour this album because I know it's just going to increase exponentially. So if anything, I think having this project has just opened me up to being able to experiment more with just the impact that the music has on the listener.
Yeah, I really like that. The other thing too is like when I see a show, I like it when the artist interacts a little, and you get to see something that's not just like a persona, but the real artist, and you're going to get to see the real person behind the lyrics. So it's cool that it's almost like it's freed him up. This kind of emotional vulnerability has freed him up to kind of interact in interesting ways with his fans. And kind of speaking of interacting in interesting ways with fans, Gallant's music is in no way I would think it would be classified as like religious music in any he sings a lot about heartbreak. I don't think he's overly religious himself, but back in 2016 he found himself sort of in this interesting spot because Ology was blowing up. It was getting these incredible reviews. And he was also working on like kind of a side project of ambient music, and that caught the attention of Sufjan Stevens. Who? What's your Sufjan Stevens take, real quick?
Oh, I'm all in on Sufjan.
Yeah.
Did you know this? Yeah, I was living in Chicago when like Illinois came out. So I was, a white Christian college kid living in Chicago when Illinois dropped. I was I was target market for that. I was a bullseye for the whole Sufjan Stevens thing. So he's still, and ever since then I've been he has a pretty important place. He's in my Mount Rushmore of singer-songwriters.
Yeah, for sure. And the other interesting thing is like when Sufjan Stevens co-signs an artist, you're like, okay, I got to listen up. And that's what, that's what he did with Gallant, because it wasn't just, him taking Gallant out on tour. They actually collaborated a bit together.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And, when he brought Gallant out on tour, they had a couple stops at like Christian colleges, which is super interesting. And no one found it more interesting than Gallant himself, who didn't really know why he was there or what the audience reaction was going to be. But he was really, as he explains it, kind of pleasantly surprised with the reaction that he's gotten. Here is how Gallant talked about that tour.
It's weird, man. I feel like the Christian college thing is funny because I think they might have heard like some of my lyrics and like Bone and Tissue, maybe like I'm like, tell me something I could use to like catapult my value, and I talk about preachers and for me, I'm like kind of making fun of it in a way, and I think to them, they interpreted it as like me, I don't know how they kind of derive Christianity from it, but it's funny because even like Sufjan's music has the same kind of like ambiguity. Like sometimes he'll make religious references, but then I can't tell if he's being like, if he has reverence for that or if he's like approaching it with cynicism. But that was like a really fun tour. I feel like I was also really scared too to do that because I think at the time I had like an EP called Zebra, and it was all this ambient music. And he had only heard like, maybe I think like a couple of those really like ambient tracks. And when I went on tour, I was doing more music from my album. So it was a lot more aggressive and a lot louder. But his audience, I think, was just so down and open-minded that they were able to kind of take that in. And then that gave me a segment of his fan base that appreciated where I was coming from. That kind of carried over into, the pop sphere, allow me to do things or even deeper in the alternative sphere. So it's kind of weird. Like it's the audience that like I've built so far. It does remind me of like the my friends growing up in Columbia, Maryland, just coming from all different walks of life and having a bunch of different perspectives. Some people liking very simplistic, commercialized music that has like an ounce of soul in it. And then other people liking very like pages ripped out of a diary, like punk music sensibility. So I'm sure it like makes it a nightmare from like a suit and ties perspective, but for me, like it's a blessing to be able to meet so many different people that all feel like they could be my childhood friends.
I love that perspective, that idea of the kind of gracious response he received from Sufjan fans and even listeners at some of these Christian colleges, and how, because we talked quite a bit more about his upbringing and how he grew up with, a pretty diverse group of friends who are into different kinds of music. And now he's at a point in his career where he's kind of incorporating different ideas from that type of music. But it kind of built up his confidence back in 2016 touring with Sufjan. And as he's preparing his latest album, Sweet Insomnia, to bring in influences from different types of music fans. So it was cool to talk about that evolution.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And it seems like I can see why him and Sufjan were attracted to each other musically, because they both just seemed interested, not just in like new kinds of music, but in different sounds and experimental ways of not just like combining different music styles, but creating entirely different ones that you really wouldn't. If Gallant wasn't making the kind of music he made, nobody would be making it. There's not a lot of comparisons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was definitely cool to talk to him, hear his perspective, and it's fun to listen to the album. It's called Sweet Insomnia, and it is out now. That was Gallant. We appreciate him coming on with us.
Sweet insomnia,
listening to Sweet Insomnia by today's guest, Gallant. Okay, so we have a rare opportunity here. For Jordan's joining us. It's not every week we're doing this podcast. We have an intellect, an emotional intellect of Jordan's caliber here joining us. So we wanted to put that to good use right now. Jordan, you're a renowned speaker and writer. You specialize in helping people realize their own dreams and purpose. So here's what we're going to do. Jesse has been on the internet trying to find the questions that our readers and listeners have. And we're going to throw some rapid fire questions at you and let you dispense like rapid fire life advice and lightning round style. Are you ready for lightning round advice, Jordan?
I am as ready as I possibly can be.
And I just want to say this, no pressure. Only a few actual lives hinge in the balance here. So no pressure. No pressure at all.
Perfect.
You probably won't need to be doing
Do I get a disclaimer here? Do I get some sort of like, this is not legal advice?
No, actually, I've drafted something and it's in your inbox now. You'll need to get it signed and notarized because the stakes for this need to, the good news is you might never meet the people whose lives hang in the balance on your words. So that's good. So that should alleviate some of the pressure.
In your mind, it'll all be fine.
Yeah.
As far as you know.
Worst case scenario, they can move back with mom and dad for a while they get back on their feet if your advice goes horribly wrong. So no pressure.
Jordan, what is your lightning round advice for a college student who can't decide on a major?
Ooh, do you want to know my real opinion on this?
Yes. Give us the real controversial one.
I have a very polarizing view, I think, of college and being there without knowing why you're there. I had a friend recently challenge my perspective by saying whenever they meet someone that's getting ready to go to college or is in college, instead of asking the immediate question of like, where do you go to college or where are you going to go to college? They ask, why are you going to college? And I think that's a very important question because I think my husband and I talk about this a lot, but it's not that college is not a good thing to do. It's if you're going and you're not really sure why you're there, what you're doing, and you're going into debt for it. If you are on a full ride scholarship and you're going to get out and you're going to be okay, like that's one thing. But if you're going into thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of debt and you don't have a direction with it, you're actually, I think it would be better to take a break, to work a little bit, to get out into the world, to dig into some things that, maybe trades or learn some skills or get some work experience. And then you might discover, oh, I want to specialize in this. I'm going to use that instead of just sitting here now in $100,000 of debt. Now I want to go back and get my certification or my education in this specific field. Or hey, I just found a field that I don't actually need that for, and I'm going to go build this awesome business or build this awesome career. So I think, the need in some ways for college has shifted a bit because, I look back at my parents' generation, and I think back then, in just a short 1 generation, 2 generations from now, it was less common for everyone to go to college. Now I feel like it's almost like an expected thing, right? That question is almost immediately always after someone graduates, where are you going to college, right? And I think there's so many people in college that don't actually need to be there. So if someone's like, I don't really know, I'm going into a lot of debt, I'm just kind of, here, I actually say like, take a break and don't keep going into more debt until you really know, like, do I want to specialize? Do I need to get a degree that requires higher education, like lawyer or doctor or engineer or something like that, rather than a general studies degree? So that's just my 2 cents. As I think college is an amazing place to grow. I just always try to warn against, don't go into debt for something if you're not sure what you're doing. And if I could have gone back and given my former self that advice, I think that would have been very helpful. But thankfully, I was able to not have to, or to be able to be on scholarship. But at the same time, I always think about that. Like, why do we feel this pressure that we must be here and this is the only way to succeed? So I always try to give a pressure-free approach in some ways. Like, let yourself explore, let yourself try some things.
Yeah, I like that because trade skills and different things that people can look. Sometimes you just need to lay low in the storage unit and just figure things out for a while. And there's no shame in that either, because like I said, it's like $30 a month. Put a big padlock on there. No one's going to bother you. Trust me.
Totally. And like you said, I mean, I have a friend, I know this gal, it's an amazing story, very brief, but basically she went to school for a little while. I was like, I don't think I want to be doing this. And her parents said, okay, here's your college fund, go start a business. And now she has this incredibly successful business in Nashville. And I think it's an amazing story of providing young people with different options to understand that there's more than one approach to a successful life and a successful career.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Well, that was a very good lightning round situation out of the gates. I feel confident about the rest of these. Okay, Jordan, what would you tell someone who wants to quit wasting so much time every night on Netflix or their phone?
Delete your Netflix account. Delete your Instagram account.
Oh, man.
Man, go nuclear.
No, I actually have found just creating even location boundaries in your home or in your living space can actually be very helpful. So we have a location boundary if phones don't come into the bedroom. And I try to actually build a little bit of like a bedtime routine. Like, okay, I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to, read a book for 20 minutes. And I try to do that consistently. And so it's like the last half hour of my day is spent in my bedroom where I have now made this rule that phones don't come in there. So even if you create a little bit of a location boundary and somewhat of a routine and try to create a little bit of consistency with that, I think our lives crave routine. And I think we've gotten so into the routine of scrolling. I mean, why do we do these actions every single day on our phones so consistently? I mean, it's literally like a religious ritual if you think about how consistently and often we do it. And so my whole approach to that is just how can you actually do something consistently other than that and then make that a discipline. Even if it's the last 10 minutes before bed, I'm going to spend reading and my phone stays in the hallway. Like something that simple allows you not to have it next to you so that you don't reach for it.
I think that's great advice. And that was the other thing. That was the other beauty of the storage unit. All that corrugated steel. It was a dead zone in there. You were no signals.
Yeah, or just rent a
out.
storage unit. Like if it's really an issue, just go live in a storage unit. Like break the habit, and then you can come back.
We can get through
the
like
storage
half
unit
of these
situation is looking better and better. Okay,
Storage
it's
therapy.
looking better and better.
Storage therapy. It's like
when all you have
rehab.
is a hammer, they all look like nail. You know what I mean? It's
What else you got to?
all right. Well, how about this one? What would you say to someone who's not sure they're dating the right person for their life right now?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot more to that question. Obviously, there's a lot of specifics and particulars, but I think there's a couple things. One, I don't know if y'all can agree with this, but I sometimes feel like our dating culture and climate right now is almost like, I don't know if it's due to the dating apps or just like the constant interconnectedness we have on the internet, but I almost feel like there's this like pressure on people and this struggle to actually commit and to be, I think you're always going to have that feeling of like, well, here's the thing. Nobody's going to be perfect. No one's going to be perfect for you. And so I think there's this heightened expectation that now exists. And I think we have access to like, this sounds weird, but like a catalog of other options in our pocket at all times, right? There's always someone else we could find on Instagram or whatever other app you might be on. And I'm not against, utilizing those tools to meet someone, but I think it makes it really hard to really appreciate and enjoy the person sitting in front of you or, so I think there's a few things that you need to think about. One being, what are your non-negotiables? And if you haven't established those before going into, getting into a dating relationship or seeing someone more than just a few times, then I think that's going to create a lot of confusion for you as your emotions might get involved or your heart might get involved. But I always try to say, like, establish your non-negotiables. That might be we have the same theological beliefs or we have the same political views or we have the same values when it comes to family or we have similar goals in life. If you have 3 or 4 non-negotiables or, at least things that you're like, I don't really want to have conflict over these things. And, then I think you have to be like, okay, well, if I don't love his laugh or if I don't love her earlobes or these weird things that I think we can totally overthink, then I think you have to say, is that a negotiable thing though? And are the core things that really matter about a partnership there? I think we can freak ourselves out. Like, is this the perfect person? So I just try to say, take the pressure off of yourself and off of the relationship, consider your non-negotiables, see if those are in line, and I think there's just a lot of people who are very confused as to what they want. And they're so afraid to settle down because they think that's immediately settling. And that's why I think having those non-negotiables is so important. And I think we really desperately need we need relationships, right? Like that doesn't mean we desperately need to get married. But my point is, I just think commitment is struggling in our culture right now because there's so much distraction and so many other options. And so I just say, like, think about what really matters. And if it's a person whose values align with yours and whose heart aligns with yours and who treats you with respect and cares about the things that you most care about, then before you just, write it off because you don't like their laugh or they're kind of quirky or there's some little thing that you don't love, like you probably have some weird quirky things too. So I just try to say, like, have a very realistic approach because no human is perfect.
Yeah, it's like the Jerry Seinfeld thing. Like you can always find something wrong with anyone. Nobody's perfect. I think that's great advice. A last minute submission just came in here, Jordan, that I just received, and I feel like this one needs a little context. It's from an anonymous listener, but I think I know who it is. A few weeks ago, Jordan, our producer Chandler, say hello once again.
Hey.
He has been in an emotional dark place. A few weeks ago, he got his car towed. And ever since then, he's just never recovered. And it was a big misunderstanding. He almost missed several days of work because of this. And now I see this question come in. Here it is. What is your lightning round advice for someone who wants to get revenge on a tow truck driver who ruined their life by causing an emotionally downward spiral? I don't know who this is from. It's from Anonymous. It's from Storage Unit Dweller 85. So, Jordan, what would your advice be to a person who may not or may not be Chandler?
You know, I always say that I think forgiveness is always better than revenge. And let's apply this. Let's apply this to a bigger life lesson here. Let's apply this to a bigger life lesson, because I think we all desire somehow to get back at somebody who did something wrong or who ticked us off or who totally screwed up our week. And I think the best lesson here is to remember withholding forgiveness only hurts yourself. So I'm not pointing any fingers, but I'm just saying.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably good advice,
good
because
somebody needs that. I don't know who
who out there needs that.
But I hope this person is listening, and I hope he or she, but he takes it to heart. And
yeah. And I hope this person isn't late for work anymore because of this situation. I'll just throw that out there. And I hope they don't take my advice, which was to make up terrible things about this tow truck driver and post it on Yelp. Just let Yelp be your revenge. Either way, the path is yours, dear listener. Well, yeah, Jordan, that was very wise advice. I don't know very few people who could have given a legitimate, wise answer to something as so absurd in that situation that our producer Chandler put you in. So very well done with that.
Jordan, do you have time for one more?
I have time for one more. Absolutely.
All right. What would you say to someone who wants to make more of an impact in their community?
Go home and love your family. That's some other Teresa thing. But I think I've been learning so much this year, just the importance of starting with your neighbors, starting with your own home. I think like we talked about with social media, looping that conversation back in. I think that constant almost message to be impactful, make an impact, do these things. Again, I do believe we can use tools like social media to be impactful in a community. But I think one big conviction that I've had over the last year and a half or so, it was really like, I can make an impact on people online, but I can really get into relationship with people in my real life. And so it's been a really interesting shift for me from feeling like I'm supposed to be doing all this big impact online to really saying, I'm going to go sit with my neighbor, Fran. Fran is my friend. She's the best. She's she's in her 70s. She and her husband live next door to us. And we've had a great time building a relationship with them. And I think tools like using things like food and inviting people over for meals, hospitality is such a huge thing. And I personally don't love to host. I love people, but I'm weird in small group settings. I don't mind being on stage and speaking to a crowd, and I love being one-on-one. But if it's like that awkward 6 people in a room, it's uncomfortable for me because I'm like, well, I've had small talk with all of y'all. I'm going to go sit up in the bathroom for about an hour till everybody leaves. That's kind of where I default to. Yeah. So it's like pushing myself outside my comfort zone to be like, you know what, we can invite another couple over for a bonfire, or, we can have a cookout and have 2 other couples over. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but I just think really getting involved in your neighborhood, knocking on neighbors' doors, being old fashioned, taking cookies to the new neighbors, inviting people over for a bonfire, just getting to know your neighbors, I think is just a lost art. And that's something we've been really intentional about. And also I think a little bit more common here in the Midwest, but, I've noticed when we lived out in Phoenix, Arizona, nobody talked to each other. People would go home, shut their garage doors, and go in their house, and that was it. I didn't know my neighbors. Nobody really knows their neighbors. It's very uncommon there comparatively. And so we've really tried to say, what are the steps that we can actively take to make our neighbors know that we see them, that we love them, that we invite them, that we welcome them, and that they're welcome at our house. I grew up in a culture where our next door neighbor would walk into my parents' house and grab a jug of milk and walk out the door and not say anything. And it was just normal, so not that we have to get to that degree, but I just think be welcoming and hospitable and find creative ways, whether that's through a bonfire or a cookout. People really convene over food. And I think hospitality is such an important thing that we've lost the art of. So any little way you can invite people into your home or into your apartment or whatever, somewhat consistently, make that a discipline. Do it once a month if that's all you can do. It's crazy how I think empowering it can be, not only or impactful it can be for other people, but empowering it can be for you to realize how like just valuable developing relationships in that kind of communal sense and home, comfortable neighborhood sense really is.
Yeah, I love that. As listeners to this, or regular listeners know, I'm a big time neighbor guy. I know everyone on the cul-de-sac.
Neighbors. Yeah.
I'm a big neighbor person. And during my those few dark years in the storage unit, I knew all my storage unit community neighbors who were mostly feral cats. But again, they would come in my unit and steal my milk too. That's weird that you'd say that because my place was crawling with them. And so, but no, I think that's great. I think, yeah, making an impact where, like, tangibly where you live is really important. I think that's great advice.
Well, I think that is going to do it for our lightning advice round. And Jordan, I can't speak for all these people. We'll see what they come back with. But that was really solid advice. Thanks for being willing to be a good sport on all of that and for delivering some really tangible, good steps forward for the people in these particular situations.
Yes, hopefully their life is out of limbo now.
And I think with that will wrap it up for all of us here at the Relevant Podcast. Hey, I want to say many thanks to Gallant for joining us. Sweet Insomnia is out now. Also, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. Jordan Lee Dooley, you can follow her on Instagram at Jordan Lee Dooley, Jordan Leedooley. Thank you so much I hope we get to do this again because this was really fun, Jordan.
Y'all, it was so fun to hang. I am just honored to hang out, be here, laugh with you guys. You bring a lot of joy to this world. So I am cheering for you, and I hope to do it again soon.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Make sure to sign up for all of our other podcasts when you check us out on the podcast episode page. I'm Tyler Huckabee.
I'm Chandler Strait.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Jordan Lee Dooley.
We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Relevant Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Check out other shows from the Relevant Podcast Network in the podcast section at relevantmagazine.com. And while you're there, browse exclusive podcast merchandise at our online store. Make sure to subscribe to Relevant Magazine. Info is available at relevantmagazine.com/subscribe.
Of course I'm feeling depressed, find a way we could use it.
Sometimes you just need to lay low in the storage unit and just figure things out for a while.
Relevant Podcast Network.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets, and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care. Go to Dutch.com to get vet care that is always there for just $92 a year.